welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today we're going to talk about Psi games that you can play with yourself if you're interested in exploring your extrasensory perception or your psychokinesis abilities or even your remote viewing skills. So this channel is my anomalous study hall. Most of the time I'm reading books and sharing with you what I'm learning in those books. And I'm also working on my own practical applications of all of the knowledge that I'm gaining through my research and study over time. Some of this is starting to manifest in the form of my remote viewing practice, and now I'm also growing more and more interested in the skill of seeing without eyes, vision without eyes or mind sight, and psychokinesis, because so many people are online playing around with these things and having so much fun, and I'm watching them learn and grow, and it's just making me want to jump right in and play with them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Next week I'll be talking about Alien Goddess by Joanna Kujawa. I'm about halfway through this book, so I'll have lots to share with you next week on that. Again, if you're interested in remote viewing, I use the Social RV website. It's socialrv.com, and this is one of the best ways to develop your Psi abilities because it's grounded in actual feedback. A lot of times as people are beginning to develop their psychic abilities, it's easy for the imagination and the ego to take over, and things can quickly spin out of control, and we can even delude ourselves, which I think is taking too many steps backwards in the wrong direction. In order to really expand our perception and open up our own direct experience of this greater reality that is our true reality and our true nature, we have to be really honest with ourselves every step of the way, and also really humble and really willing to play. Psi abilities are not about tricking yourself into believing that things are possible that aren't possible. It's actually about developing yourself and being honest with what's happening so that you can gain access to those real anomalous experiences that provide you with your own direct understanding of the true nature of reality. I've had a handful of these, maybe more, throughout my life, and at this point I'm really looking forward to creating consistent results with some of these practices, and that's why I really love people like Hakim Isler, the creator of the Psi Games, because he's bringing this to the people. He's making it fun and accessible, and he's showing everybody that these are things that we can train in, just like the Olympic athletes train in their special areas of interest. We can each train in our special Psi areas of interest, and we can actually see progress, and we can compete with each other and be playful with it. And I'm having so much fun watching all of the people online who are trying these things out. So I recommend checking out Anna Intuitive on TikTok if you're on that platform. She's someone who went to the Psi Games and just started practicing on her own and has come really far. And you can see in the videos that she's not just using wind to move the Psi wheel, but she actually has it under a glass jar for lots of her meditations. And she's just getting that thing to spin with her mind. She also has been teaching her own daughter mind sight, which is an incredible skill that a lot of kids are really good at picking up, and adults are learning as well. And this is the ability to see through a blindfold. There's a lot of nuance to it, lots of information out there about it. You can look up the term mind sight or vision without eyes. There are different organizations that lead workshops on this technique, and people can be trained in a weekend to do this skill. It's pretty incredible. But if you don't have the money, the thousands of dollars to go take a workshop, start by just buying yourself a blindfold. One of the great, what would I call them? A perceptualist from the Psi Games. That's what they called them there. One of the great perceptualists who demonstrated mind sight was Dalia Burgoin. And I heard her on an interview saying that she practiced with her own blindfold for 6 months before she could ever afford to go to a workshop. So you get one of these. I got this one just off Amazon, but you get one that is a real blackout blindfold. You can see how these little cups provide a space around your eyes. And that's important for this practice because you need to be able to open your eyes in the blindfold and not see with your eyes. So for starters, you want to find a mask that really fits you well. And my eyes are open right now, but I can only see blackness, which is good. And if I move around, I'm not even getting any flashes of light from the corners of my eyes because this is on tight enough. But the people that teach this skill say that it's actually okay if you are getting a little bit of light bleed in. Sometimes that helps. Another thing that they do is they actually face the sun and let that bright light shine in their eyes through the blindfold. Nothing is really showing up visually in the normal way, but something about the light helps to activate the windows opening. It's just a mental trick. People also use flashlights to open their windows sometimes. And the window is the little field of vision that you begin to perceive with your mind's eye. And I know it sounds pretty crazy, but think about it this way. We all dream, or at least many of us do. And when you dream, your mind is just creating visuals for you, even though your physical eyes are asleep and closed and blocking out information. And some people think that mind sight could be like skin sight in a way. It's like our body is still able to perceive all the light that is touching it, that is reflecting off of everything else. So that information is still coming into us, and then our mind is able to take that data and render a visual for us. And that's what the visual of the mind's eye is. It's creating this mind sight. You know, if you look at this through Tom Campbell's theory of everything, he would just say that you are consciousness living in a consciousness reality, and this is an information-based reality. So all we're doing at any given time is just analyzing information that's coming to us, that's flowing all around us. And so with mind sight, we are just accessing information with consciousness instead of with our physical eyes. Either way, it's happening. People are learning to do it, and I want to learn to do it because it's one thing to be blown away by a cool demonstration, but it's a whole other thing to have this experience for yourself. And I've had this amazing experience of some like success with my Psi abilities when it comes to remote viewing. I'm almost up to 200 sessions now. And, you know, there's evidence. There's evidence of my mind being able to access information at a distance. There's a whole notebook full of sessions now, and I can go and look at my sessions and my notes on the website, how I did, what the target was. Sometimes I've viewed certain targets multiple times now because you don't know they're blind targets. And so sometimes you get the same thing. You can compare that to your first session and see if you got the same information or different information. So it's a really good Psi practice because it's one where you have that feedback and it's really hard to trick yourself into thinking that you're doing better than you are. Another way to get feedback is through these Zener cards. So this is a game that was created for ESP practice, and people can use them to practice telepathy with one another. For example, if I was looking at this card and I'm seeing the symbol on it and I'm mentally trying to send the symbol to you, and you know, maybe you got it or maybe you didn't, maybe you don't know what the different categories are, so it's harder to think of what the symbol could be anything. But in that instance, it was a plus sign, it was this. And you have water, star, circle, square, and plus sign in these cards. And so what I've been doing as a really simple practice is just taking two different symbols, like water, for example, versus square. Trying to go for things that are really different from each other. And just making piles of just these two symbols. Whoops. So that I can play a little guessing game with myself, or a psychic perceptual game where I'm going to try to access the data of what's on these cards. So for this little game, here we go. I'm just going to shuffle up the cards really quickly here. And I got this idea from people that are playing around with mind sight. Again, there's a wealth of knowledge out there because people are sharing their videos, and it's really helpful to see the strange little nuances that folks are learning as they play around with these things. But one thing I noticed is that when they're practicing mind sight, they're waving different colored papers in front of people's eyes, and they're stating like green, yellow, red, or whatever the color paper is. But sometimes before their window opens, they're using other senses to perceive what the paper is, so they kind of touch it and they know that's the green feeling one to me, or that's the yellow feeling one, and they have some other way of just accessing it, even though they're not yet seeing with their mind's eye. But it's like a step in that right direction. So with these cards, I can't see what's underneath it, but I can use my remote viewing ability to just access the data. Like for this one, I'm just sensing that it's water. It's a square. I'm getting square. It's water. So sometimes this, sometimes it's totally wrong, and that's okay. You just have to get through those ego moments and keep trying. For this one, I'm going to say water. 0 out of 0 so far. Square. Wow, I'm really on a roll with the opposites here. Water. Interesting. Square. I'm on exact opposite. Water. Exact opposite. And square. Okay. That's too funny. So I got everyone exactly wrong, which is interesting too, because that's like not very chancy. But I played this game the other night with circle and square, and I collected all the data, and then I fed it into ChatGPT to ask if I had results that were better than chance, to find that statistical value. And it wasn't really better than chance, because I'm not that good at this game yet, but it's something that I'm going to keep playing with. I'm going to say water, square, water, water, square, water, water, square, square, water. So trying different speeds, different methods, keeping it light, keeping it playful. Don't be afraid to fail. I'm failing in front of you right now, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we're just playing. It does feel good to get things right, and that's kind of what makes it addictive and fun when you start to get things right, but it's okay to get things wrong. Water, square, square, water, water, square, water, square, water, water. So this is one way that you can play with something that gives you real feedback instead of just saying, oh, I totally know what that person is thinking, even though they're not saying it, and I know that they're thinking this or that about me. And it's like your ego can start to develop a whole persona that you're psychic, but actually you never get any actual feedback. And that's super dangerous and counterproductive to actually accessing Psi and proving to ourselves that this is real and not just something made up. So again, like I said, my area of expertise so far with all the Psi abilities is actually remote viewing. That's where I'm doing the best. But I want to keep expanding out into these other practices because I'm just a curious girl and I want to see what's possible. And I see other people doing it and having fun. And of course that makes me think I can do it too. And I know that I can over time. But I also understand through my study of like Tom Campbell's theory of everything that life isn't about developing abilities. It's about our inner growth and our inner journey. And so all of these things are just tools to work with our own limiting beliefs and our own egos and our own imaginations in order to evolve and grow and learn. And that's valuable. And any of these silly little games cause us to focus on one thing. So they do provide the framework for a nice meditation, which is also just a valuable thing. And it's been proven so many times that meditation is great for everybody. It calms us, it heals us, it creates more focus, and all of those things are helpful in life. So let's talk about this final game, the Psi wheel. This one is really interesting and it's really fun, but it's like really hard to connect to because my mind at least really has a hard time accepting that I can move this with my mind. I need to be moving it with force the way that my mind is set up because I do have that materialist mindset that we all have because that's how we were raised. So what you do is you take a little piece of foil, bend it both ways to create this little point in the middle, and then get yourself a toothpick. I have a ball of wax here. People do it in a candle or a needle, and then you put the point right there. Get it to balance. And then what you're going to be doing is working towards eventually standing far away from the Psi wheel and just using your thoughts and your energy, your intent to move it. Some people are even doing this inside of a glass jar because you can move it with force. You can move it with air. And that's not the point. We're not trying to move it just with air. But there's a lot of games that people play to start getting the feel for it that include using a little bit of air to move it, because it just puts you in contact with that sensation that this thing is moving even though I'm not touching it. So something is happening. Of course, you're not touching it, but the air is touching it and you're pushing the air. But then at a certain point, you might start to have the experience that eventually this thing moves without any influence from the air, and it's actually something else that's happening. I'm not there yet. I just started playing with the Psi wheel, and I'm mostly just noticing how stressed out my mind is when I play this game. My mind hates this game. It's so mad about it. It's why are you even doing this? This is never going to be possible. But then the other night, I was just doing this with one hand and that thing was spinning. I don't know how. I don't know why. I took a video of it. It was cool. And I posted that to my TikTok because I've been really enjoying other people's videos when they get that motion. And when I watch those videos, I just think, oh, it looks so easy. It must just be, they make it look easy. They're just putting their hand near it and all of a sudden it's moving. And then when I actually tried it, I realized this is actually really hard. You can't just make it, it's just not normal for it to move without some kind of force moving it. And so when it does happen, it feels even more anomalous and exciting. And even when something anomalous happens, your mind can reach in and say, well, maybe there was a tremor in the ground at that moment, and even though my air wasn't blowing on it and my hand was holding still, something else was making it move. Or, your mind can do all kinds of little tricks, and that's fine. The idea is that eventually, in order to really prove to ourselves that any of this is possible, there has to be repeatability. There has to be some kind of mastery over this so that it's not random chance, and there has to be statistical significance. And so I'm just at the very beginning of my journey with all of these things, but like I said, I'm getting a lot of good feedback from my remote viewing practice, and that's helping to open my mind to these other things. And I've been studying anomalous phenomena for so many years, for 15 or more years. I've been actively researching and studying, and so I have a good mental framework to be able to accept that these things are possible, but it's still not enough. Our minds are so intensely sticky and strong when it comes to the neural pathways that have been deeply carved due to a lifetime of thinking the same thoughts over and over and over again. And so it really does take a lot to break out of that rut. And that's why I'm starting to play with these different games, because I want to break out of the rut even more, but I need more feedback to help me. And so I'm trying to gather my own experiential evidence. And these little games are a part of that journey for me. So like I said, just play, have fun, don't take it too seriously. If this stuff stresses you out, use that as a mental exercise to observe yourself and question your own mind. And like all the great teachers, mystics and scientists alike will say, life is not about developing these magical abilities. That's not the end game. That's not the goal. All of these things are just ways to understand the nature of reality and to have fun with it. But ultimately, the goal of life is about evolving our consciousness. So that's an internal job. That's about growing and challenging ourselves as people in the world. And they go hand in hand. So if you're doing your inner work, you might see a lot of progress in these outer experiences and games and abilities. Or you might not necessarily develop Psi, but you might get a promotion at work, or you might get a really fun surprise from someone else in your life, or you gain access to a really beautiful relationship or something. There's other ways that life can reward us for doing that internal work, but I do believe that accessing and harnessing our chi and like developing our energies is one way that life can give us that feedback saying like, oh yes, you've progressed, you've learned how to quiet your mind, and you've let go of a little bit of ego, and now I'm going to show you that these other things are possible. I mean, this is the path of any martial artist or energy worker. You know, these things don't happen immediately. Some people do have natural abilities that seem to come online quickly and very intensely. Other people are activated by teachers or other experiences in nature. But for some of us, we just have to try really slowly over time and see what happens, and see if showing up with consistency and humility and a commitment to expanding our own minds, we can just see what happens, you know? And again, that's why I think all of these things have to be done slowly over time, and they are not meant to be overnight experiences. But the more people that do them, the more things are happening. So it's worth playing and it's worth trying. And I just wanted to show you a couple games that I'm tapping into myself. Again, all of this was inspired by the Psi Games, which happened for the first time last year in 2025, and there will be another Psi Games in 2026. So it's just like watching the Olympics or something. You know, if you see an Olympic athlete doing something incredible, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to do that same thing tomorrow, but it might motivate you enough to go out and just play a little bit more, or challenge yourself, or take your own whatever to the next level. And that's what the Psi Games are doing for me. I'm not a master at PK, but I feel excited and inspired when I see people doing well at these things, and it makes me want to push myself a little bit and just play around. So hopefully this is doing that for you, at least sparking some ideas in terms of what kinds of games you can try to incorporate into your own meditation practice. And we'll get back together next week to talk about this book I'm reading, Alien Goddess by Joanna Kuyawa. I'm about halfway through, and this is all about goddess consciousness, anomalous experiences, both spiritual and alien, and then this new turning point that we're at with AI, and how Dr. Kuyawa sees that as like a potentially dangerous future, a post-humanist future that she is not interested in experiencing. And so she's kind of calling us to consider our options and think about what is sacred and good about humanity, and not just considering ourselves these impure vessels that, you know, need to be replaced by something synthetic. So I'm finding it pretty interesting, and I'll share my notes with you next week. Have fun playing with your Psi Games, and check out Hakeem Isler and the Psi Games channel on YouTube. I'll put links in the description box below, and comment if you've ever tried any of these games, or if you have an account that you want all of us to follow where you are demonstrating your Psi abilities. I think watching other people play has been really good for my mind, and has also just been really fun. So happy play, and I'll see you next time on Shock Talks.